This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Blah! Kelp. Gross. This is a disgusting block, isn't it? Aha. No, it's not. I think we can use this block a lot more often than we do. It was introduced not long ago where you can take kelp that you find in the water, you can cook it in a furnace, and then you can create, in a 3x3 crafting grid, a kelp block. The pattern's interesting. Up on the top you have a cross, on the sides you have lines, and then it's got kind of this green texture to it. Doesn't get used very often, but if you do find ways to use it, people will be impressed. But before we dive into the 10 ways that you can use the kelp block in your buildings, let's talk about the texture a little bit. This block here, it has some greens and some whites in it. So I grabbed some blocks that have similar colors and textures in them. The reason why you want to do this with any block really is so you can get an idea of what would work well with it. What could it blend with? The mushroom stem kind of resembles a similar color to that line that goes across, which is supposed to represent like a rope kind of holding it all together. Also, a bone block could work well in this case as well. This is green concrete. This is kind of in here. You can see that green. It's a little more bluish, but that green concrete is right about here. Lime concrete blends with this fairly well as well. Now over here, we have more complementary colors. Now red is the complementary color to green. So this is the primary complementary color, but here's some secondary complementary colors. Purple and orange can also work with different levels of lightness and saturation. Here's a very low saturation version of orange, and here's a very bright saturation version of orange. So these are blocks that you can use with green, the green in the kelp, that will look pretty good. So now that we've got that down, let's do some building and let's see 10 ways that we can use the kelp block. Now, this is a fairly obvious one, but if you've got a little pond, you see these water pockets all over the place in Minecraft. Sometimes they generate naturally, or if you've made a little pond, or if you're next to a river, you can kind of make it look like it's a bit of a kelp farm. You can store your kelp over here. You could even have a furnace where you cook it. It's not super useful all the time, but if you have a little area where you can store your kelp, you can take some of the blocks and put them on display like this. I've made kind of a little bit of a cage here to where this is where it's all sitting. Make a little tool that looks like it's grabbing the kelp out of the water. I've even put a vine on one of them to kind of change the texture just slightly. You can put some carpet on it. Another thing that looks like a tool, and some rails to tie it all down. Even though it has ties in it, this looks just a little more serious, like a really holding it down type of thing. But I think this is a great way to kind of decorate around ponds. There's lots of things that you can use, lily pads and grass and kelp and seagrass and all that stuff. But some structural decoration like this can work out really great as well. I also put a loom here because maybe, they're using the kelp for some other reason. They're using the loom and like weaving it or something like that. Use your imagination a little bit. But there it is, the first thing that you can make using the kelp block. For number 2, here's something kind of interesting. And we're using some of those colors that we talked about. We know that red complements green very well. So we're complementing the green with the red on the walls here. If you have some areas like in a city or a little alley or something like this, or maybe this is even inside of a building where you're doing some cooking and stuff like this, stacking up some kelp like this in the corner can be very interesting. Whether you're using it or not, it looks really cool, especially with this red color. You have the green that contrasts it. We also have some orange for the furnace, and I think that looks really, really cool. Couple blast furnaces. I think this looks like a really good industrial rusty block. So the orange complements as well. We have a lot of colors that are working with the green. So this actually makes the kelp look great in this spot. It's all tied down, and it's just a nice decorative piece for right there. So that's number 2. Now, I'm sure some of you thought of this as soon as I said that red and green are complementary colors. Where do we know red and green from? Obviously, Christmas. That's where you see the red and green theme quite often. And whenever Christmas time comes around, when you're playing Minecraft, you usually make a little bit of a Christmas tree and put some presents under it, especially if you're on a server. Now, I rarely see this. And obviously, you can't right-click it and open it. Something like this, well, if there wasn't a sea pickle on it, you could click it, you could right-click and open it. We usually have red presents and stuff like that. But the kelp block, look at this. It's the most perfect wrapped present decoration you could possibly come up with. You put a little piece of coral on top. This is a dead fire coral fan. The fan corals, you put that on top and it looks like a little bit of a bow. You can put even a button on top for orange, or an orange button. And I think it looks like a great, fantastic present, doesn't it? So yeah, when Christmas time comes around, which is, 6-7 months away, think about the kelp block. Use the kelp block as a decorative present underneath. That's a fantastic one. Now for number 4. Kind of staying with the Christmas theme, we've got a cozy Christmas cottage. But it doesn't have to be a forget the Christmas theme thing. Look at this. For a little bit of a cottage, old buildings back in the medieval times, they would, and even still to this day, you see homes where the roofs have like thatch on the top. Now that's a block that we don't really have in the game. We do have hay blocks, but they are a little bit jarring, very yellow. And this works as a really nice thatch type roof block. I think it looks really nice. You have the strings tying it all down, which looks fantastic. And it's got kind of that nice dark green color. It's not too much. And I put some berry bushes out front here to kind of have a little red pop to contrast that green. I think this looks really, really nice. If you're doing like a Viking style or just a small medieval style, this is a fantastic roof. It works out really well. So, using the kelp block as a roof is a fantastic idea. Now for number 5. Let's step away from the medieval and the older times builds and let's go a little more contemporary. Here we've got kind of a contemporary living room, just a small thing, but look at how this works for a nice contemporary style rug. It's simple. It's got a really nice pattern, and of course we've got some blocks. The terracotta works very well with this. If you pre-plan and you think, hey, this rug won't work in every scenario, but if you have some kind of reddish colors around, this can work fantastic. It blends in really, really well in this space, and it just gives a nice decorative feeling to the ground. Of course, we can use wool and we can use carpet for the carpet or the rug, space rug here. But something like this, it's a little bit different. It mixes it up a little bit. So a kelp block as a rug. Look at how nice. Now before we dive into number 6, let's take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor. Let's say you want to set up a website and you want to make it to where only members can have access to certain things, whether it's a paid membership or a sign-up membership. How would you go about doing that? Well, the answer is Squarespace. But I don't know how to make this website look good. Whenever I design a website, it looks like it's from 1995. I wish I had a website that had pre-made designs already for me. Well, the answer, again, is Squarespace. I've just written my first novel and I want to get it out there and I want to start selling it to people. But boy, an e-commerce store is sure hard to set up, and I don't want to do it on some other site. I want to do it on my own personally. Guess what? Your answer for your e-commerce store is Squarespace. These are just a few of the amazing features that Squarespace can offer you if you're looking to set up a website. If that interests you, head on over to squarespace.com for your free trial. And when you're ready to pull the trigger, go to squarespace.com/B000100. That's down in the description. Use code B000100 to save 10% off your first domain purchase. Head on over to Squarespace today. All right, number 6, sticking with the contemporary theme. How about a contemporary floor tile? This is a fantastic way to use it. You've got a nice dark green floor tile. These lines on top work out perfectly for a light white grout. It's busy. It's a busy floor. But look at this bathroom. Hi, me. Oh, yes, that looks fantastic, doesn't it? But little towels on the side, you get some other things like that. We're sticking very closely to the dark green theme here. We're not using much to contrast as far as colors are concerned. We're using a little bit here in the shower, which I think looks very nice as well. But this is a perfect floor tile. The grout lines creating the perfect squares and the nice dark green texture. I think it looks fantastic in a scenario like this. And now for number 7. Slowly but surely, I've been easing you into using it more and more in different ways, in more ways. We did the floor last time. Now let's do the walls as a wallpaper. Ooh, isn't this nice? A dining room. That's where I think it would work really nice, is a dining room to give kind of a warm, cozy feeling. It's dark, right? So know that when you use this block, it's a dark block. I mean, if we look at it from a distance, you'll be able to really see and tell. It almost looks black the further away you go. So it's dark, and when you use it, it's going to give a warm feeling, but where better to have this warm, cozy feeling than in a dining room, especially if it's a spooky, haunted one, right? But I think it works for a fantastic wallpaper. Those paintings, they're too high. Oh, now I've made a mess. Aha, spooky. Now, aha, I did that on purpose, you see. It is now a spooky, spooky dining room. But I think it looks fantastic. So, try it out. Use it as a wallpaper in certain scenarios. See how it works for you. Now, unfortunately, this one's not functional. And a lot of these aren't functional. They're more decorative. But that's where we have a hard time in the game, is decorating, isn't it? So this is a great way to decorate out a bed in a bedroom. Look at this pattern. Wonderful pattern for your bed cover. I think it looks fantastic. Now, you can also do a couple things. Obviously, we're just using this as the comforter on top, right? But you can take another wool block. Let's just go with black. And you can make the top half of the bed black and then use this as, you know how people will have little blankets kind of draped over the end of the bed. It can work fantastic in a case like that. So both ways, using it as a full comforter or just one on the bottom or even just one in the middle. That people do that as well. These are great ways. Oh yeah, that looks nice too, doesn't it? So if you're building a bed and it's kind of a 3x3 situation like this, where it's not going to be functional, it's going to be more decorative, this is a great block that you can use to add some interest and detail. Now for number 9. This is one of the simplest and smallest little things that you can do. I've got kind of a hole cut out in this wall here, but can you spot it? Can you spot the kelp block? Aha, right there. Now this seems super simple, but I'd be remiss if I didn't show it to you. Because look, it's a dark block. It's a dark block, but it has these lines in it. So this can almost look like a block that we often try to find ways to have chandeliers hanging. And you use hoppers, you use walls and fences and stuff like that. But the kelp block never gets used. And look at how these lines come right into this and looks like a string continuing down. So a string just tied around whatever this is up above and then hanging down. It's a little bit of a stretch. It's probably the biggest stretch out of all of these things, but it's very unique and it's very different. And I think it's a great way to use the kelp block. How about a whole house? Huh? The whole thing. The entire structure, well, aside from supports and ceiling, is made from kelp. Now, this isn't going to work in every scenario. You can't really use the block for like a skyscraper or something like that. But this is kind of a Japanese themed architecture. And I think it works very, very nicely. Often you see in Japanese architecture, they'll use more, you'll see kind of paper walls and stuff like that, or paper windows. I don't know exactly what they are, but it looks kind of like that. So this isn't as a super big stretch. And I think it looks really, really nice, especially when we're using orange, which is kind of a complementary color to it, to the green. It looks really, really nice. Let's look at it from a distance. on all angles. Now, it is pretty plain, and I usually like to mix up my blocks quite a bit. I don't like to have a 3x3 area that's all the same. I like to put some texture in there and stuff. But in a case like this block already has so much texture and noise in it that it doesn't really need it. It looks really good just the way it is. But also with this balcony on the outside, you kind of cover up and break up that texture a little bit from this other layer. So the kelp block as the entire building, it works. It works really, really nice. From a distance, it looks fantastic. And even up close, it looks great. So that's number 10. So like I said from the start, you don't have to use this, but it's one of those things that if you do use it, other people that see your builds will think, hey, that person's thinking outside the box. It'll be an impressive thing. And for you, you run out of blocks. All the blocks we have right here, we always default to a certain set of blocks. This is one most of us don't default to. But I think if you start, it can add a lot of possibilities. Use it for a roof. Use it for a Christmas present. I mean, that's only 1 month out of the year. But use it in all these ways, as a rug, as a wall, as a floor, as a bed, and as a whole house. I think if you do something like that, I think you're going to come up with something really, really nice, unique, and interesting. So if you use those, if you use the kelp block in some interesting ways, I'd love to see pictures. Send them over to me on Twitter. I check all that stuff out, so I'd love to see if you can come up with some ways to use the kelp block or how you use it, if it's something kind of along these lines. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching 10 ways to use the kelp block in your Minecraft builds. I appreciate it. Leave a like on it for me if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next episode.